I don't think you should be using advanced Spanish. Yes, I said it. But more specifically, I don't think you should use advanced Spanish when you are having conversations in Spanish with Spanish speakers. It could be causing you more confusion than necessary, even giving you anxiety, and make you overthink everything that you are saying in Spanish. These things prevent you from having a fluent Spanish conversation. As well, they really make the conversations that you are having unenjoyable. In many of my conversations in Spanish with Spanish speakers, I really developed the bad habit of only focusing on using advanced Spanish. And I say that this was a very bad habit because it was mostly due to my insecurity, right? So I thought that I had to use advanced Spanish because I didn't want that Spanish speaker to think that I was dumb. So for me, okay, I'm gonna use advanced Spanish. I don't wanna use just basic Spanish because the Spanish speaker can perceive me as being dumb. It's very unrealistic. Now I know it's really unrealistic to have that type of mentality, but that's how I used to think a lot. As well, I thought that I've been learning Spanish for 1 year consistently, 2 years consistently, 3 years consistently. I must only be using advanced Spanish and that's it because of my Spanish level, right? Or perceived Spanish level. So I was putting a lot of extra pressure on myself to use advanced Spanish for these particular reasons. And honestly, I don't even remember when this bad habit started, but it definitely did not come from Spanish speakers. So I'll definitely say that because it wasn't like the Spanish speakers that I was talking to in these conversations were telling me, you know what, Joshua or Josue, you need to start using more advanced Spanish. It was not like that at all. It all just came from my own mind and me having this insecurity. So it's very, very strange. But that's why I'm telling you all this so this doesn't happen to you, or at the very least, you are aware that this can happen as a Spanish learner. So this made me pause so many times in my conversations because I would think like this, okay, there is another word that is more complex than this one that I'm about to use, or there is a more complex or more advanced phrase that I can use instead of this one. So I'm not gonna say this word that I know that's already coming to my head right now, but let me just think about this other advanced word. So it was like that. I was always just trying to use, a very complex word or phrase, but I didn't really have it right at that moment. So that's why it took me longer to think about what I wanted to say. By the way, if you didn't know, I have some other resources besides my YouTube videos that may be very helpful for you. Like my 2 free PDFs, the Spanish Conversation Blueprint and the Spanish Vocabulary Blueprint, and my Spanish resource kit, which is $10. And those resources are linked down below in the description box. Now, in my conversations in Spanish with this mentality, I was just being way too critical of myself. I was also just sucking the fun out of my conversations, and I was just overthinking everything. And also, I don't like that type of conversation where I'm only just trying to use advanced Spanish, because that's really not the point of having conversations in Spanish, at least in my opinion. In my opinion, having conversations in Spanish is all about transmitting a message, being able to have an exchange with a Spanish speaker and enjoy it in the process. There's nothing wrong with challenging myself in a conversation, but if I get to that point where I say to myself, that conversation in Spanish wasn't good because I didn't use advanced Spanish, I know that I am doing something very, very wrong. So that's something that you should be very careful of. Now, I should say that I am not against using advanced Spanish. I'm not against learning advanced Spanish. But my point is here that I would say that there is a time and place for it. For example, many of these conversations that I'm referring to right now, I didn't have to use advanced Spanish. I could have just used, I would say, more of like foundational Spanish. Even when I went to Cali, Colombia in January of this year, I didn't have to use a lot of advanced Spanish to get around, just to ask people simple questions. What are some good places to go in Cali? What are some good places to eat at? Where can I go out dancing? Are you from here? I'm from, the US and things like that. So just be aware of why you are learning certain things during your Spanish learning journey. So again, you could be learning advanced Spanish just because, maybe you are studying for an examination. That's great. Or you just want to amplify your vocabulary. So you want to be able to, speak with more advanced Spanish vocabulary. That's great. But maybe on the other end, if you are like me, you're just doing it because you are putting a lot of excess pressure on yourself and you think that you have to use advanced Spanish when you are having conversations in Spanish. So when you are communicating in Spanish. And again, that is not the case. It's not really realistic, at least in my opinion. So it's just not necessary in general. So be very aware of the why to everything that you are doing. Why am I learning 5 advanced ways to say hola, or 5 advanced ways to say no me siento bien or adios and things like that? There are plenty of, articles online that you can find in YouTube videos, that have this type of content. And again, I'm not here to answer these questions or to tell you what you should be doing. But I'm just here to give you awareness of some different experiences that I have had, and I don't want you to make the same mistakes that I have had. So this channel, Spanish Blueprints, is all about you creating your own Spanish blueprint, right? So this is why it's really important to always look at your goals and see what you really want to achieve during your Spanish learning journey. All right, I think at this point I'm just ranting and venting, but if that does not make any sense, please let me know in the comment section below and watch this next video. Adios.